Hi, everyone. It's Christine Russo, and welcome to What Just Happened. Today, we welcome Hugh Forrest, President and Chief Programming Officer of South by Southwest. Welcome, Hugh. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you're gearing up and getting ready, and I appreciate that you are interested in getting a little bit of behind the scenes out there because it's really just an amazing feat that you guys have. It's an amazing feat of what you guys pull off. So to have the time to see behind the curtain a little is wonderful for everyone. So thank you for coming on, Hugh.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm flattered.
As I was thinking how we could kick this off, I started to think about this sentence that South by Southwest is at the forefront of groundbreaking. And then it's so big and wide and interesting and blossoming and changing and the creator's world that it could be anything.
We've always thought that creative people can learn a lot from people in their own industry, but we've also believed that mixing different kinds of creative people together can be oftentimes even more impactful, that a filmmaker can learn a lot from another filmmaker, but they can sometimes learn even more from someone in another industry who has somewhat of a similar challenge, but has figured out a kind of different way to approach that. Mixing of creative people from different industries together is one of the things that makes South by Southwest, I think, somewhat unique and one of the real value propositions of the event.
That's not how you started. Was that a result of open-mindedness or a positive result or just like massive vibe, amazing vibe? How did we get here?
You're correct. It started in 1987 as a music-only event. We started the first of many kind of pivots in 1994 when we added film and what was then called multimedia. Was that an entirely strategic decision? Somewhat strategic, but also the two of the four original founders of South by Southwest came out of the radio, television, and film program at the University of Texas, and film was always their passion. So they always wanted to start a film festival. In fact, the name South by Southwest, where does that come from? Well, it came from their favorite film when they were in the RTF program, which was North by Northwest for the Alfred Hitchcock film. And then why did we add in multimedia at that point? One of those original four founders had the foresight to realize that all this content stuff we were doing with music and adding in with film, that was eventually or soon going to go all digital. And if we had something that was focused on technology, focused on the impending digital revolution, that we'd be in a pretty good space. And then since 1994, we've added a number of other verticals, industries that we cover, ranging from healthcare to government, food, fashion, sports, transportation. On the one hand, a lot of these things, again, just are industries that are rife with creative people. I'll also say that often, or in most cases, the things that we've added, and particularly the things that we've leaned into, reflect the changing nature of the changing personality of the city of Austin. When we started again in 1987, the city had an incredibly strong music industry. 1994, you were beginning to get these two directors coming out of Austin, Rick Linklater and Robert Rodriguez, again, both who came out of the UT Film School. And then on the tech side, you had one Michael Dell, who was developing this kind of interesting model in terms of selling computers. More recently, we added, again, a health and med tech track. One, you could see that health and med tech a lot of this was going to go digital, that new technology was influencing this a lot. But two, because the University of Texas was building a medical school in Austin and presumed that medical school would have a long tail and create more of a health and med tech industry here. And then more recently, with the Tesla plant opening in Austin, Austin has become much more of a city that has a budding transportation industry, which we never had before. The smaller companies that have built up to service what the Tesla plant needs, other transportation companies moving here because of the Tesla effect or impact. People ask me, what'll South by Southwest look like in 5 years? And my somewhat flippant response there, which is a good way of kind of making too many predictions, is I say, I don't really know, but it will look a lot like Austin, Texas, right?
Let's hope Austin, Texas doesn't get ruined.
It's not the same place it used to be. It changes a lot. And all changes is generally pretty good change. But yeah, what were the defining aspects of the city for so long are less so now, shall we say.
Your connection to Austin is informing your 5-year outlook. But why do you have to keep that connection? Because Austin's changed, had such external metamorphosis, good, bad. And you're so big now. You're so influential that while it would never, I'm not suggesting it should physically move, but being informed so closely, like having that answer of being, it's whatever Austin looks like, that may tie your hands a little bit.
I think that having some kind of root connection to the local community is important and valuable. I think the operative words there being some. It doesn't have to be completely tied. As per what you said, as we add these new events, an event in London, an event in Sydney, their success, I fully believe, is not going to be defined by how closely they can replicate the Austin event. It's more going to be defined by what unique manifestations of creativity that are generally tied to their local community can they emphasize and create a compelling event around that. I think your point is good that we don't have to be completely tied to the local community.
I just want to make one more point on that, and we can stop there or you can add on, which is, yes, the Austin South by Southwest, the Austin local and roots are a key part of the DNA, but some of these new people to town, they have nothing to do with the locality of it. It's your DNA. But now I think you get to pick and choose a little bit more.
Yeah, observations here are very astute. Many years, one of the big selling points of Austin is a cheap place to live. And that meant that artists could thrive here because you didn't have to pay a whole lot in rent to live here. The influx of the massive growth that the city has faced, that has seen in the last decade, particularly in the last 5 years since the pandemic, and particularly the growth of tech people, tech jobs, has very much changed the personality of this city, where affordability is no longer something that we particularly have an advantage on versus any other community. And again, that means that the struggling bands who used to thrive here now have to live 25 miles out of town as opposed to 5 miles out of town. Yes, it has inevitably changed the dynamic of the city, and that is something that we certainly face, consider, think about as we think about the future of this event.
When retail was like, really, it was branching out into new cities, and Austin was considered one of them. It was considered so unique in the Texas landscape because there was water, it had natural greenery, and it was progressive. And it probably has 2 out of the 3 things still. You can just leave it there. I wanted to talk to you about, and then I wasn't sure because I saw a lot of your social posts on the pitch portion of, and I was like, okay, he's big on pitches. Let's talk about pitches. You're like, I don't want to talk about pitches. I'm like, okay, let's not talk about pitches. Are we talking about pitches? Are we not talking about pitches? You did 10 posts on pitches.
Yeah, startups are a big portion of what South by Southwest is at this point, and trying to give those startups a little more visibility to the online community. Realize, and it does sound like you've done your homework here, so I think you understand this. The upside of South by Southwest is you've got so many different things going on at any one given time. The downside of South by Southwest is you got so many different things going on at any one given time, and some things can often get overlooked. I love startups, but I also love young new bands and young filmmakers.
Every year, I'm assuming you leave a little bit of white space for what I would call maybe a trendy tech or a nascent tech or topic, because 2 years ago, 2023, there was a lot of content on metaverse.
Yeah.
A lot. Obviously, and everyone wanted that content. It was very popular and everyone was seeking that information. How does it work where you plan for that and then you unwind and make room for something else that might be? And what's the metaverse equivalent, the new guy on the block, new gal on the block for this coming year?
I still think that the metaverse will eventually reach a higher standing than it has now. Certainly, it had its day in the sun and seems to have faded back a little bit to be eclipsed by AI, which has eclipsed everything at this point. That's probably, as the nature of hype cycles work, that's probably a good thing for the metaverse, quote unquote, that it can develop in a little more of the background. We still do a XR track at South by Southwest, which is about all kinds of immersive technology. That's popular. I don't know if it's popular with our attendees. I don't know how, again, popular it is out there in the mainstream, just because this stuff hasn't ever caught on to the degree that the futurists, the trend spotters said it would. I do think that the obvious things there are, A, when the headset becomes less problematic and it's more like just wearing glasses, that will be a big jump forward. And you're already seeing some of that with the Ray-Ban stuff from Meta too, when the price on these things, as that continues to drop and make it easier for more people to enjoy this technology. In terms of your question, the back part of your question of what's that next shiny new bell, shiny new whistle at South by Southwest, this year we've added 2 days of quantum related content, quantum computing on March 12th and March 13th. We had some of this in the 2024 event. We'll have more in 2025. Quantum seems like it's going to be the next big thing. I don't think it's mainstream yet, but getting there pretty quickly. Although I will also say that quantum goes against what my and I think a lot of other people's rule for successful technologies is if it's too hard to explain to your next door neighbor or your son or your husband or whatnot, then it has a real difficulty, I think, succeeding in the mainstream. We can say it's going to make things a lot faster. It is. But in terms of me explaining how the Quidbit stuff works, I'm not so great at that. I also always thought that was the challenge, particularly, I think 2 or 3 years ago when we had so much crypto content at South by Southwest. Somehow it's going to have some value at some point. It's that one's a little harder to explain also, I think.
AI jumped right into the hands of the consumer. And then you had no difficulty explaining it to your grandma or whatever. 2 years ago, I almost fainted because New Order was there. And I was like, oh God, this is one of my most favorite
Did you get a chance to see him?
Of course. Are you kidding? This was really fun. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for spending some time with me.
I'm Christine Russo. Big thank you to Hugh, and see you at South by Southwest.